everyone. My name is Dima Abusharikh. I am a teacher in the National Orthodox School. Today we're discussing a very hot topic, which is special education needs, inclusive practices that work. In this panel, we want it to be as natural as possible. We're going to have a chat, and we want any one of you who wants to talk with us or who wants to add something, you can do that. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be in this panel. As educators, leaders, and advocates, we all share a common goal, which is to create learning environments where every student feels capable, supported, and seen. And today we're talking about the special education needs. I remember the first time I taught students with special education needs. The school gave me an amount of classes, and they weren't enough. So they chose me to go and give classes to students who had difficulties in learning. They shoved me in, they put me inside this class with nothing but my big heart on my sleeve and this empathy. I tried to give them classes like any other student, and it didn't work. So I tried coming up with new strategies to help these students. After that, they chose me to take another, let's say, education, which is about gifted students. And I found out that even gifted students have special education needs, not only those that have difficulties. So before I start, I would like to know more about you. Ladies, let's start.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah.
My name is Manjula Pillai, and I work as the inclusion coordinator at Ambassador School, Dubai. And like Dima just pointed out, we handle both the students of determination as well as the gifted students. And the challenges that they face are very different. So you really need a different set of skills to handle both. But most important, empathy. I think that's what's the key. Thank you.
Thuraya.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Thuraya. I also work as a coordinator in the Department of Special Needs at Mirdif American School. To talk a little bit about my own self, since childhood, I have believed that everyone has the right to be themselves, just be themselves. I didn't know by then that there are theories that speak about this, because I was just acting by nature. Everyone has the right to play, everyone has the right to talk, everyone has the right to do whatever they wanted to do as long as it is safe for themselves and for others. This is what I believed in since childhood. After that, when I entered the field of education and I started reading about education, started reading about psychology of children, I noticed that there are theories and people who talked about this. I strongly believe in the humanism approach, where everyone should be empowered, everyone should live the way they need to be or the way they deserve to be. We need, as educators, to provide them with the tools that they can help them survive this world, especially now that we are not only the only ones who are impacting our kids. There are external factors that are working on raising them up. As part of the education field, as someone who is very involved in this, I would love that, to share our strategies, because here our title is to share strategies. So we are here today as educators to share some of the strategies that we use inside our classes, inside our schools, that can help, and I hope that you all can benefit from them. Thank you.
Yes, Karmisha.
Thank you. My name is Karmisha Tuck, and my program is Carms Charms. I am a mentor for young ladies ages 8 to 18. We're based in the United States, Washington, D.C., but we have connections through South Africa, Jamaica, the Philippines, and actually beyond. And so one of the things that we mostly focus on is improving a child's confidence. And so I've worked with young ladies in all walks of life, and one of the things that I notice the most is that, how do we empower them? How do we make sure that we are connected to them? We connect with the things that they want to do. And then how do we make sure that they grow? And then from there, like I mentioned, we start the empowerment process and make sure that we continue to let them know that they are seen, they are heard. Even if there are some certain challenges that they go through, we don't make them feel excluded. So we also like to focus on confidence with them.
Karmisha, I'm going to start with you, because you work with communities. Let's talk a little bit about the parents, because when you talk to the parents about their children, most of the time they do not accept if you tell them that their children need something more, let's say. So what mind shifts do parents need most in order to support inclusive education?
Thank you. That's a great question. I would say just understanding that the times are different, especially now, from when we were younger, and the way that children learn, and just taking the time with your child to understand that you may need to do things a little bit different, and not really pointing out things that may be a problem, but more so like what is possible, what can we do together to make sure that they are, like I said, empowered and they can grow. So just looking at that to help develop them, and understanding that we can work together to make sure that they're better.
And Thuraya, do you have meetings with the parents to talk about these things? How do you approach them?
We always have meetings. We always have something called coffee talks. I think many of people here are aware of it. We specify days where parents come and visit the school, and we give them like a kind of a talk, short talks for 45 minutes. We sit with them as a short visit, and we explain to them specific things. We listen to them when they have questions, because those are sessions dedicated for parents. So we give those 45 minutes specifically for the parents who have any question that they can reach.
Dr. Manjula, what practices have you found most effective in building strong collaboration between class teachers and learning support assistants?
Well, I would say that the first thing is to get both of them on the same page. So whatever planning happens, ensure that both the teachers and the LSA sit together. And it is not a competition. It is, in terms of, who's supporting the child better, it is more of a collaborative activity. And the moment they are clear in terms of, okay, what is it that we are doing? What is it that both of us are doing together? There is nothing like, this is your part and this is my part. And regular communication, check-ins, daily check-ins, in fact, to see how things have been, weekly reports that are put together, weekly communication with the parents, so that it's what we call a triangular support that is being given to the child.
I think that's a problem that we face in our classrooms, that the teachers, they want to rely on the assistants and they don't want to do any of the work. They just want to get rid of this burden and they just shove it to the assistant teacher.
Yes, normally what happens is the teacher has to attend to like 20, 25 students in class, and the logic always is you just have one child. Yeah. But what happens when we are talking about an inclusive environment, it becomes extremely necessary that each child is a part of the class. So it is not the responsibility of the LSA, it is the responsibility of the teacher to ensure that that inclusivity is being followed. And coming again, the purpose of an LSA is only to make it easier for the child, but the purpose of the teacher as a subject expert is to ensure how it can be delivered in the best possible way to the child.
And let's say she needs to monitor if they're getting the skill or not as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that that's a great point. One of our resources and researchers from Carms Charms has always said that inclusion begins with the environments we create, not the labels that we apply. So that's from Dr. Hester Jones, one of our researchers at Carms Charms. She always says that.
Yeah, but also I think there is one point, very important point for the educators who are here. I think they agree with me in this. Schools do not invest enough in training the teachers to deal with the special educational needs. Here, I prefer call them the students of determination, as we usually do. So schools do not invest in this kind of training. We have tens and tens and tens of trainings and workshops and PDs that are done within the school premises. We bring visitors from outside. We pay money for them to help us understand how we can create a curriculum, how to collect data, how to do all these things. Although they are very important for every educator to be aware of, but also there is a lack in this area where investment is not also directed towards the students of determination department in order to be able to help the other mainstream educators. I don't know if you agree with me
I
on this.
completely agree with you, because this is something that even our teachers always point out, that CPDs are always done in terms of, lesson planning, assessments, etc. But when it comes to actually handling, so in our school, we follow certain best practices sharing. Whenever we have our CPD days over the week, even the LSAs, if there is something that they have worked with their particular child and they say it works, that is shared across with both the teachers, the inclusion department, everything. So I guess baby steps, we will, yes. There's a long way to go, definitely.
And again, I want to highlight that special education needs are not only those with difficulties, but also the gifted ones that need extra care and, let's say, extra activities. You need to, as a teacher, I need to have something extra for them in order not to lose them in my class or to make them make a chaos, inside of my class, because they're done. They have understood what I wanted to convey, and they have nothing else to do. So it's both. That's why it's a little bit hard for teachers. Do you want to?
Yeah, that's a great point, because then once the gifted child starts acting out because they're frustrated, because they're bored or they don't have anything to do, then we start labeling them as a problem, when it's really we should be trying to include them and make sure that they're staying on the trajectory and staying on the path that they're already on, and just keeping them included as well.
Okay, I want to ask you, Karmisha, again. Can you share one story where the community engagement transformed a student with special education needs journey?
Of course. For an example, I have had a couple of young ladies that, have had issues emotionally with things. That's a lot of the things that I focus on, their emotional stability and how they're feeling. And, honestly, we had to start focusing in on we have to bring in medication for them and things of that nature. And so that was a bit of a challenge, just talking to the parents, because that can be touchy when it comes to having children being put on certain medications when they need it. So once we started talking about options and things that they could do to better themselves, they were willing to step in and to come up with practices and be able to put the child on the medications and the information, give them the information that they need. And so we went to doctor's appointments, and things of that nature. And so we came together that way.
And did their, let's say, their marks or did their attitude in school change after that?
Absolutely. One of the things that we also had to do was just move their schools. That was, something that we were faced with, and we did see a peak in a growth after that was done.
Do you think a teacher's impact could really change a student's life?
Oh, absolutely. If I would take one of the case, we had a child who was in grade 6, and she had dyslexia. Right? She had dyslexia, and until grade 6, her exam papers didn't have any vowels in them. It just had consonants, because She just identified the sounds of the letters. So nobody could make sense. So we literally started her intervention beginning in grade 6, and I'm so proud to say that today she is currently enrolled with Middlesex. In fact, she got conditional admission before the board exams were over. She is a world record holder in yoga, and she has also got a yoga teacher certification.
Wow.
So I'm extremely proud of, and the child did not have any shadow, so it is the parent support, the school support, the teachers, everyone stood together, and of course the child did her bit. But it's extremely heartwarming to see stories like this, which kind of, give you the belief, let the child be and they will find their way.
Yeah. Thuraya, how do you ensure that general education teachers feel empowered in your school, not overwhelmed when supporting students with diverse needs?
The first thing is for me as a coordinator, the first thing I think of is I need to be there. I cannot just sit in my office for 8 hours, give instructions to the special needs teachers and the LSAs to do things. So the first important thing to me is to be inside the classes. I personally need to be aware of every single student, so I know how to help them, so I know how to help the teachers that teach them, whoever.
So you monitor.
I monitor, I am inside. When there is a need for me personally to intervene, I will intervene, of course. We sit with the teachers on a weekly basis, the mainstream teachers and the SOT teachers. We sit together, we have weekly meetings with the teachers. We plan the coming week. We sit and we show the mainstream teachers what is the plan for this specific student under our roster as SOT student. And the differentiation happens where on the spot. When we are doing the meeting, we get to know from the teachers what lessons, what units they are going to cover for the coming week. We sit together, we put the differentiated material, we plan. That's on a weekly basis. This happens also in the presence of the LSAs, because the LSAs are the people who know where the exact gap is. So we take the opinion of the LSAs about it, how we're going to plan. So mainly, we are always there. We provide the teachers, the mainstream teachers, with whatever strategies they need. If there is a need for the SOT teacher to be inside and co-teach, we will do this also. The SOT teachers will go inside the classes and co-teach. And this is part of it should be like a norm at all schools. Mainly, this is
Manjula,
what we do.
That's awesome. Manjula, do you have the same?
Yes.
Do you prepare as a teacher? For me, sometimes it's overwhelming to do all of these, let's say, activities, worksheets. It's overwhelming for me as a teacher yes, exactly, as a mainstream teacher, to go into the classroom with all of these papers. Sometimes I really get lost. Do you have that? Do you prepare stuff just to support your teachers?
So what we have is weekly, when the departments meet for their lesson plans for the coming week, we ensure that the SPED who is handling the child, as well as if they have an LSA, is going to be present in the meeting. And then once the basic meeting is over, then we have a one-on-one with the teacher and then chart out what is required for the child. And at this time is when we suggest what all resources are required. And if it is any kind of teaching aid, sometimes the LSA says, okay, this particular video is something that I can get, or this is something that I can print out, we can laminate and use it as a prompting. Or the teacher says, okay, this particular assessment sheet that I'm going to be using, I will differentiate it for the student. So it's collaborative work at the end of the day. And like you said, it does take some time to plan, but I feel if we give that half an hour or 1 hour that is required the previous week, the week becomes smooth for the teacher, the student, and the LSA.
Karmisha, do you encourage taking out these students out of the class for special classes, let's say, if they have a difficulty, let's say, in decoding or in writing or in reading? Do you encourage to remove these students for special classes?
I would say yes in certain circumstances because everyone is not cookie cutter, and so we can't address every student the same. And so if they need that special attention or special requirements, absolutely. Yes, I think it's something that's vital so we can make sure that we hone in on the things that that specific student needs, whether it's them just needing a reset, like if they're just frustrated within the classroom and they just need to get out for a moment, help them reset, give them ways to get breathing exercises to make sure that they can get back on track, and then they may be able to re-enter the environment and be better.
That's awesome. Are there any indications that the schools are missing when identifying that there is a student with special education needs? Do you think that some schools are missing some indications?
I think the missing out comes because maybe they don't have enough people to support. So what happens is, especially in the lower grades when we talk about it, it comes as, well, they don't speak the language at home, which is why the child is slow. Or it's okay, I mean, let the child just enjoy. It's the first few years. Yeah. Don't put the pressure of academics. But what we often tell the parents also is that the earlier you start, the easier it is going to be to help the child get adjusted with the accommodations. And sometimes we see that if we start with the child in grade 1, by grade 3, they are able to independently manage their academics, which is not the case if we start much later. Yeah. So yes, there is. And in terms of training, when people are not trained enough to identify what are the red flags, that also becomes a problem because, okay, children are just acting out because they are small, or the tantrums in class because it is separation anxiety, or a lot of, it's easier if you don't put them on the list. You as a teacher don't have to kind of, make the accommodations for them. Maybe the inclusion department is also overwhelmed. It works both ways. Yeah. But yeah, the child misses out.
Thuraya, if I want to go to my classroom after we finish this conference, are there any advice that you want to give me?
Yes, of course. Get to know your kids one by one. Deal with them as individual cases. It doesn't matter if it's a mainstream, if it's a student who is achieving on a high level, or a student who needs one-to-one support. Deal with them as individuals instead of just seeing them as students. As we know, we are not the only source of knowledge for them, but we are the only source, when they are inside the classes, we are the only source for safety for them. Be the safe place for them. Do not let them fail, it's fine. Let them see that there is something that's called error in life, and errors are okay. We learn from our mistakes. Deal with them as individuals, get to know them.
Karmisha, do you think it's only the grades that indicates that this student has special education needs?
No, I do not. It's how they're showing up also, just how they're entering the classroom, how their posture is, how, are they good at making eye contact with you?
So even body language.
Yes, body language definitely sets the tone of how someone is feeling, just making sure that you can identify with them and understand, like, hey, something's off with this student today. That's not how they usually communicate with me. That's not how they usually, look at me. Like, what is happening? Or even, like how they're dressing as they come in the classroom.
True.
Those things matter, like how, all of those things. So I put it all together to make sure that, nothing's off when it comes to my girls.
Okay. It has been great talking to you, ladies. Is there anything else you want to say as a final remark?
When we look at how Dubai is progressing in terms of inclusion in schools, they are doing the rules that are given, and the framework that we have to follow ensures that every child gets a fair chance, be it gifted, be it special needs, be it in terms of just well-being, counseling, everything. And recently, they have also introduced the concept of ensuring there are alternate pathways that are being suggested to the students, parents are being informed about it, etc. But one of the things I feel we're missing out on is a child clears school, clears university, then what? Because when we talk about inclusion in the employment world, we are still talking about physical disability. So we have the ramps or we have time adjustments made for them, but where do you have any kind of accommodations that are being provided for a child who's autistic or for a child who has ADHD or a child with a learning disability, which is lifelong? We do give them methods on how to handle things, but when they come into the workplace, something as simple as sitting in a meeting where everything is just said becomes very overwhelming for a child who is visual. There is no summing up possibly that happens. And the child is not able to perform because they are used to getting certain accommodations throughout and suddenly they are lost. So which is one of the things that, parents often ask after university, now what? So that is possibly where we feel that, the education is needed in terms of organizations and how they can be accommodated.
To be honest, in my school, they give this support only to grade 8. And then when the students move to high school, they have no support at all. And then they're lost. It's up to us teachers to give the support. So I understand. And even us as individuals, we all have challenges. Like if you set me in a room to listen and listen and listen, I would lose all my concentration. This is my personality. This is how I learn. I need to move around. I'm static. So I truly understand. What's next? What should we do? Should we have guidelines for them? Should we have ongoing meetings? What should we do for the next step?
I really feel that there should be guidelines initially so that organizations also understand what is it that they have to, it's a starting point. And from there, then possibly the organizations, it becomes easier for them to see, okay, this is a particular area or a particular department where we feel we can take in people, etc. Because like Toraya pointed out, or you pointed out in terms of professional development, they probably come from a generation where special needs was not recognized at all.
Exactly.
And there is no accommodation. So when they suddenly see that, they just don't understand. So I feel we need to have guidelines, which will be the starting point, and then from there,
I believe it needs a collaboration between the government, people who write policies, between the organizations themselves, the institutions, the schools. It's like a whole teamwork that needs, and it takes time to be achieved. It's a new thing to everyone. Previously, like 20 years ago, when I was still a child, like 30 years ago, I was still at school, a person who is a little bit considered naughty, but this person maybe has ADHD. No one knew about it. Maybe this person has dyslexia, and he's so shy to show that he doesn't know how to read properly or how to write properly, and then they are considered as lazy. They don't want to work. So by then, the whole mindset was different. Now, things are changing. It's slowly, yes, but we are on the right track, I believe, especially here in the UAE. They are working a lot. There's a lot of projects taking place here about this. I think the audience here need to share some ideas because many of them are educators. We are so happy to hear from your side because we are not the idols in here. We're sure that we can share ideas.
Anyone wants to add any ideas about inclusion, you can do that. Just raise your hand. Until anyone wants to share something. Kermishet, what advice do you want to give before we finish?
Okay. I think what I want to end with is identity agency and belonging, making sure that each child understands their identity and they don't feel, secluded from from the rest of the class in a certain way. If they do have to step out of the classroom, still make them feel included in a way. Just make sure that they feel that they're feeling belonged in the classroom also. So those two things.
Now, the key messages that at the end of our session, at the end of our panel, inclusion is a mindset. Small strategies create big shifts. And teachers don't need to be experts. They need empathy, observation, adaptability. Collaboration, as you said, is everything between teachers, between students, between leadership, between families and specialists. And early identification plus ongoing support equals sustainable success. Yes. Okay. Educators. Yeah.
I have seen these students actually, there is no sense of belonging, they struggle. What's your advice? How should the school or the curriculum go about it then?
Again, I'm going to emphasize on this. It's not only those with difficulties, even the gifted ones, the really smart ones, they both feel out of the group. Yes.
I want to hone in on the gifted kids a lot as well, because like I said, I've seen that firsthand. They are getting in trouble because they finished the assignment long ago, and now their chair is sitting outside of the classroom. And I'm speaking, from my perspective from years ago being in school, but then also things that I see now. And now they're labeled as troublemakers, and now they're on this trajectory of just continuously being in the principal's office or just, kicked out of school to that degree. So it's just so many things. We have to make sure that we're not addressing everyone the same. So as we, as we continue to try to talk to each student and learn each student, we can't be cookie cutter with it. So I think that also helps, making sure that they feel included that way by getting to know each student specifically, what it is that they need, and how can we make sure that they're heard and we work to develop them as a person and as a whole, so we don't make sure that, everybody is treated the same.
And I think we can also put some more pressure on teaching social emotional learning.
Yes.
We want to start it from a younger age. We don't need to wait until grade 6 or 7 so we can start this subject as a subject to be taught. It has to start from early ages where students get it as a norm, a lifestyle. The social emotional learning has a lot of teachers can teach a lot of strategies, a lot of tools. They can just share those tools with the youngsters so they can grow up knowing their feelings, knowing how they can how can they choose their friends, knowing how to be part of a group, knowing resilience, knowing how to accept the no, knowing how to address things that are difficult for them, how to deal with their emotions. All these things, this is also a part that we need to work on in the educational field here.
I saw something in one of the schools I worked with where they had a squad. They're like, the ushers? There's something similar where they go around during recess to find any student who is sitting alone, and they sit with him and they bring him to their group. And it became part of their identity, It's a practice. No student needs to sit alone through recess. And you see that it grew with them. And you never see, in that school, I never saw any student by himself or by herself. Yes. And I loved that.
I think one of the points that I would like to add here is, along with the socio-emotional learning, it becomes extremely important to teach basic functional skills to these children, like time management, planning, because once we move from the protected environment of school into a college environment, you are expected to do a lot of things independently. And sadly, the systems with all the accommodations and modifications we provide give them the crutches without teaching them what they are ready for. So what happens is suddenly you just throw them out into the world and they just get lost. So maybe a part of the belonging is because they feel that they are not able to do it in comparison to the others. So it is quite a lot. I mean, there is a lot of, in spite of what we have been doing, I think it's just 20% maximum. There's still the 80% that's untapped and we haven't even seen. So it's just as we approach and we share practices, do we know what more can be required or what more can be done in terms of, bringing about a complete change to make them, I would say, independent individuals who are able to have life of respect.
Yes, and I think the ladies have made some great points because that is where my program Charms comes in. With the school systems that we work with, we make sure that we are teaching the young ladies emotional intelligence, social skills, communication skills, how you're showing up. Are you showing up confidently? How are you sitting? Your posture, all of those things help you be in a space in the best version that you can be. And so we try to collaborate with school systems to make sure that we're pushing education because that is the forefront of everything. But then how are we making sure that we're connecting the other resources that they need out in the real world? How do we make sure that those things are ever present in their life? Because they are just as important, if not more, because knowing how to communicate is how you get in a room, stay in a room, and make sure that people hear you. So.
We have a question.
We have 3 minutes, so.
I have a question or a comment specifically. I don't speak from a perspective of an educator here. My wife is a special needs educator in Singapore. And from my experience with him, because I'm not involved in that space at all, but I sometimes feel that she struggles more with parents than with children. That's understandable. Yeah. But interestingly, I find that after having spoken to other colleagues of hers, in a social setting, I actually found that sometimes the partners need to also step up and support the special needs educators a lot.
Exactly, yeah.
That changes a lot of perspective because there's a lot of mental, relaxed feeling when you're handling these or managing or interacting with these children. You need to have a lot of relaxed feeling about the fact that back home there are people who will be able to support you as well. Yeah. So the support ecosystem is as important for teachers as it is for the students. I just wanted to make that point because I learned it only the last few years, but all that the educator probably needs is just an ability to share a hard day's work with the partner or the spouse or whoever it is in the family. Please try and do that because it really changes the attitude as well as the work ethic and the overall efficiency of that special needs educator. That's very important. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you all. Anyone else wants to ask anything? Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Like she pointed out, use your data because we, when we call our parents in for the first meeting, there is always a resistance. They have a lot of excuses because what happens is they see the child's performance as a clear reflection of parenting. And we keep telling them that is not the case. So in spite of them saying a complete no to maybe giving us consent or there are small steps that we take in order to support the child within the class without pulling them out separately. And regular periodic intervals, we inform the parent, this is what is done, and we call them for a meeting, have you seen any improvement? And that's when they are like, oh, okay, so things are working. I think until and unless we show them the results, they just don't agree. And then getting them to go in for an assessment is a very different battle. Sometimes we lose that throughout their years in school, but, well, we still try.
Yeah. Yes.
First of all, thank you. This is very special and dear to my heart. When I went through school in undergrad, I realized as a general education teacher that I still had skills that I was lacking to really support through my student teaching students with disabilities. So I decided to go get my master's in special education. And through that work, it allowed me to be able to differentiate, right? Because that was one thing that I really learned. The reality is, in a lot of programs, for educator programs, you may have one class. So when I became a school principal, one of the things that I realized is that teachers were not equipped because they weren't knowledgeable. So the first thing I had to do was first equip and empower my teachers to understand the different types of disabilities. Another problem that we had was over-identification of African American boys. Well, because they didn't know, it's okay, how do you provide those interventions prior to having to, not all students have to go through special education. There's some interventions you can put into place. But the missing piece was the parents, like you said. But we have to remember, some parents have trauma from school themselves.
True.
They were either identified themselves, or maybe they were, and they went through a program, and it was very different because I don't know about you guys, but when I went through school, I don't remember seeing students in the classroom with me in wheelchairs or that had a disability. They were typically in a different room, they were pulled out, or they were getting something totally different. And when I became a principal, not that it wasn't anomaly, but we looked at those individual education plans. We made sure that was the least restrictive environment. In other words, can they still get the instruction in the general education tier 1 classroom? That was a mindset shift. A lot of it has to do with mindset shifts, especially those who've gone through schooling in other eras, right? Because you are thinking that this is one area that all special education students, which I'm glad you brought up, gifted is an exceptionality. Let's remember that too, right? Because you can have both ends of the spectrum. But it was really about knowledge, it was about educating my teachers, and it was also about educating the parents. Because what I identified is once we got over their stigma, their hesitancy, then we were able to help their child. But we had to be very transparent. It shouldn't be something that's new. Like, how do you educate a parent, walking them through the process? So those are a couple things that we use to kind of destigmify special education, because we all, to be honest, have special needs. It's just how we look at it. And it's about how we're providing those services to students. So I think to your question, I think she asked earlier about that sense of belonging, is one, making sure that we're inclusion, that we're including those students in not just the classroom, in activities. That was a big thing. Whatever field trips that general education students, all students go on. It doesn't matter what disability you have, because the reality is that we're showing up. We have teachers who have disabilities, right? So it's no longer just children with disabilities. You now also have to, the leaders, accommodate teachers and adults in your building with disabilities. So it really goes back to the mindset, and I will challenge, if you are a leader in this room and that work is not happening, it really starts with you. And if you're not knowledgeable, it first starts with you being knowledgeable about how to support not only your teachers, your students, your parents, and your community. And so that would be my challenge. So for me, it started with me as a leader, making sure that I understood. Now, I had that background, but not all leaders who came, my assistant principals or teachers, I had to be very specific and provide them some training. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. That was the end of our panel. We hope you liked it and enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, ladies. A very insightful panel indeed. Fantastic. Come and have your photo in front of the table there. Excellent. Now moving on.